guess my question is have we done anything since the November election to correct any issues that all these people have been asking? I've had so many questions from people about why did we buy these computers? Do we have to keep servicing these computers? Who has to pay for this? Do townships have to pay for this? There's so many questions out there that I think that we owe it to the taxpayers to at least give them information that I think we can give without hurting the lawsuit. And I think that the lawsuit with Bill Bailey first started with trying to image the computers, and I think we did that part. I think the part that comes into play is where the Secretary of State stepped into our lawsuit. And if we think it's going to go away, I find that really hard to believe. I think that this is working in a library. I see newspapers every day, and the election problem issues all over the United States is #1 issue. Unless you live in Elk Rapids, you're on the front page Traverse City newspaper. And we won't even go there on that situation. But, you know, everybody's asking these questions. And if somebody did get into our security system on that computer, is there something that we could get that would correct that problem? I know there's people that can hack in all the time, but, you know, if somebody did hack in, was it our fault? Is it something that we can look into to get a better system? I know cameras had been asked, and I know that we talked about this last year, and that was part of our situation to put that in. Did we ever move forward with doing anything like that? I mean, these are the kind of questions that people are asking, and by not saying anything, by not putting anything out there, and with the press release and the Detroit Free Press just created even more issues with people asking questions. You know, I think that we need to really take a look at this and discuss what is our best options for the public so that they don't keep asking these questions, so that they're aware. I mean, not everybody knows that there's a report out there. Not everybody knows that it was a grant and that the state paid for it. And we, you know, got reimbursed for it, and there's agreement, and there's a 10-year lease on this contract on this. These are questions that I think if we could do something would really help diffuse that problem. And what are our options? I think those are kinds of things that we need to really seriously sit down and talk about, because if we don't, the people are not going to feel confident for the next election. And I think it's just going to be even worse. I think that some people feel they weren't trained very well. I mean, do we have a program in place for that? Do we have a program in place for the people that are on the county election boards? I mean, I know a person who said that they don't even know enough to do about certifying elections, and some people feel that those elections results shouldn't have been certified. There's so many issues that are going on. I think that we really need to have a discussion about it and think about how we can make it better. Not saying who's right and who's wrong and was a Democrat or Republican. How can we make this better? I think that's the issue that we really need to talk about and discuss and look at. And that's just my common sense. I don't know. Maybe nobody else cares and don't want to do anything, but I think we owe it to the taxpayers.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rubing had his hand up first. I'll get to you, Christian.
Well, I was just going to say that I kind of like the one gentleman that said, let's just count them by hand. I mean, honestly, you don't have a computer, you don't have this. When they did the recount, it doesn't take as long as what you think. So yeah, you have the election. The next day you have people come in, you have one table, they count president, next table could count Senate, next table could count House. Yeah, there's three ballots in Banks Township, so split them off into 3 rooms. It's going to take 8-10 hours, but you know what? I'll bet you we volunteers. I bet you it wouldn't cost us a thing. You have 2 people at each table. It doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, they counted 16,000 ballots in one day for president, and yeah, nobody trusts the system we have now, so we got to do something.
You can go to Christian Alex last.
Commissioner Marcus.
Probably the biggest question makes it difficult for me to want to ask the questions, because the people have been very loud about why aren't we doing anything? Why aren't we asking questions? Why aren't we getting answers? So I'm going to ask the question since we had some people that have spoken to the media, have given their opinions, have made statements, have spoken at the state level, gave their opinions and statements. Well, I would like to ask this one direct question to the clerk. Did you direct or delete yourself any files on the Dominion services? Did you direct anybody in your staff to do so?
I can tell you one thing, Christian Marcus, because the global Antrim County election program was not updated after 2 additions or corrections to 2 township ballots was completed, that we needed to pull every tabulator card back to match the election night reporting. We worked fiercely because once it wasn't automatically uploaded, we had to go into every single precinct, ballot style, race, and put those numbers in. So when you're saying who went in and worked on those files, whether they deleted them, replaced them, changed them, or corrected them, it was my office. I have never gone onto that machine, but it was my staff, and it was because they were doing their job. We truly did not have correct training with the election source new program because we didn't know we had to pull all the cards back, not just the ones we had fixed. So when you're talking about who did it, I did it. My office staff did it under my authority to get those numbers right. It wasn't fraud. It was doing my job, getting my numbers certified as the canvasser certified in total reporting to the State Board of State Canvassers. So I can tell you, I trust Dominion. I can honestly say the training was not adequate. I can tell you that every Dominion machine is covered under contract for all maintenance for the first 5 years of usage. The second 5, the townships pay their portion. I have a tabulator as a backup. If a tabulator goes down, I ship my machine to Banks Township. They put their tabulator card in my machine. So it's the programming in the cards. So if you want to call it fraud, it's me. But it's not fraud. It's getting the job done right and getting those numbers in every single cell without double publishing, because that's why our numbers were inflated. We double published because we didn't know we weren't just replacing. We had to delete a whole record. So if you have any of those questions, you bring them to me.
Sounds like you just admitted to 1, breaking the law by making changes to a thing within a 30-day period. 2, admitting that you deleted files and destroyed the integrity of the election in Antrim County. You've admitted to directing your employees to do so. So basically, Antrim County's vote was completely skewed by your office, and you're admitting it.
No, it was skewed by the lack of programming, and we worked diligently to fix it. And we did. And if you want to drink Kool-Aid, keep drinking it. Because those machines are good, programs are good. Lack of education in a program where we got last November, we never trained on it. And it's our mistake. I owned it within 4 hours. And that is all I've got to say about it. Any other questions?
I have a comment. You know, hand counting ballots sounds really good. Not so hard in Antrim County. We are a small area. But if you do it for the whole state, just imagine the hours it would take in those big counties with a lot of population. It's just not possible anymore. Yes, I would be all for hand counting, but it's just not possible anymore. My comment.
Commissioner LeVan, I seen your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a lot of questions, Cheryl, so I'll put them in writing for you. But there's one thing that I do need to ask you is, so do you feel that that Allied Signal report is incorrect when it says that our computers were hacked? So are you saying that you made the mistake and nobody hacked into our computers?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
A group came from out of state using terms of election terms that are not Michigan election terms. We do not use adjudication. Adjudication happens apparently when you put your vote in and it goes through the tabulator. We don't use adjudication. The township clerks bring their results to us. So when you look at that report, there are a lot of false truths. Every state has election laws. We follow Michigan election law. Michigan is, the Bureau of Elections is technically allowing us to perform our county's election for the state. So when you start talking about machines, we just can't go buy a system willy-nilly. We were offered 3 machines, and Antrim County, all 15 townships voted 100% for Dominion. And we saw several demonstrations of the other 2, and that was the decision because they trusted it. And they trust it today. And the audit should have proven it, unless you're looking for other things to carry on with this fraud nonsense.
So you're completely happy with the situation and the way it came out at the end with the equipment and all that?
I can say that it was my error that caused the mistake to begin with, period. The equipment is good. This report is not true to Michigan election usage law.
No, what I mean, Cheryl,
and
is
terminology.
what would you suggest to make the next election better for everyone so that we don't go through this situation again? What are your suggestions?
Well, for one thing, I have training next month for the software with Election Source. I have a May election. So the state is going to have to contract and have somebody now come and do a testing on all of our equipment that was touched by the Allied group to make sure nothing was done to our machines by them while they were here. And that is a third party that will be contracted, and they will come here and go through a hash test on all of our equipment.
But that's training for you though, right?
Myself and my election specialist will be training in March.
So what about all the townships? Do you think that that's fine the way they've been trained, or do you think, well, I guess that's my question. Do you think that they need more training, not training? Should we put money in for that? What is there? I guess that's my question to you. What would you like to see happen to make this better?
I can tell you that I train our election inspectors. The local clerks and myself go to accreditation at the Bureau of Elections through a training process. I train the inspectors. The inspectors are ran by their chairperson and the local clerk. The local clerk, they decide what tasks they're going to do at election. So you give them a little and hopefully they grasp more and more each time, because we go over it all, depending if that's their task on election day or not. So I train them. It's 2 hours and it's a 2-year certification.
So if a person doesn't understand, what would they do? Like
They would
if
ask
somebody
for
went
more
to
training.
Gaylord and went to training and they came back and said, that wasn't very helpful. It didn't help me one bit. Now what is their option?
All local clerks, as myself, have the option to go into e-learning, which is the Bureau of Elections, and it's every chapter that is available in election, their full book. Instruction steps, pictures, pages, videos, they have the option to do that under their local clerk.
Okay.
Because she or he would have to give them access.
Commissioner Watros?
I guess my question, if it was an error made by your office or you, Cheryl,
It was.
we're not the only county that there was mistakes found in, and it seemed to be pointing towards Dominion, as in most of the other counties that use Dominion. That's where the errors were, and not just within our state, within basically the key states. So did everybody else make the same error as you did in those counties?
No, I mean, our error was caused by a lot of changes close to election day. I mean, when we originally got our program, which was our global program for all across the county, it was what we originally had signed off. But like I had reported before, we had two different positions, one being a village trustee in Mansalona, that the township clerk did not get the petition to us to get him on the ballot. So therefore, that was a change to the global first program. Then we had the village of Central Lake, which had two school boards. So we had to fix that. Little did we know, and this is what brings this huge problem out, is that we pulled and reprogrammed Mansalona. You know, he got new ballots. Central Lake got new ballots. We did not pull back that card. So therefore, our cards did not match the latest global program. So when we start dumping in those tabulated cards, some were from the first global and the new one was from the second global, and it didn't match. So the cells dropped into the wrong counts, wrong jurisdictions, wrong candidates. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, after being here from 6:30 the morning before, we didn't look at the report, and that's on us. So in my mind, yes, I'll have a couple extra people working to check those reports before they go anywhere.
Commissioner Marcus?
I'm not sure how it works in the process. So if we don't use an education in a file within a Dominion system, how do you fix spoiled ballots?
How do you fix a spoiled ballot?
Isn't that one of the processes within an education file? If a file is spoiled, it goes into it and you can check it.
If a ballot is spoiled, it's duplicated by a Republican and a Democrat working together and then tabulating it.
So it's done by hand.
It's done by hand with one Republican, one Democrat.
Jeremy?
Just to answer Christian's question, larger municipalities tend to use the adjudication to quickly work through the spoiled ballots versus at our locations, they one at a time. If something happens, they just go and fix it. We've never had adjudication.
It's called spoil and duplicate. And that's what we do. We spoil their ballot with their ballot number and we reissue a new ballot.
But the city of Detroit does it. And they seem like they did it by the hundreds of thousands by hand when they admitted to having a computer application file. So if a big city like that suddenly says, oh, we have to do it by hand, what's wrong with the system then? Why isn't it working properly?
Antrim County's seen more absentee voter applications and ballots than they have ever seen before. And they were really, the locals were really overwhelmed because they started working on those election day intermittently. So yes, if you get a ballot that is spoiled, you duplicate it. And I mean, when I say duplication of ballots, you know, it might be 200 across the whole county at most. But that's done at the local level.
Mr. Garwood?
So yeah, just to add on to what Sheryl and Jeremy have said about adjudication, and as from what I understand, there are different levels of tabulator machines from Dominion. So like Detroit potentially would have the adjudication, that's a program programmed into their tabulators. We do not. If we have it, it's not turned on because we do it, you know, like they were saying, by hand. So, and we don't even have the right machine for it, as I understand it. Slow machines, because we're a small jurisdiction. All of our jurisdictions are small, as opposed to some of the larger jurisdictions which need the faster machines to process those.
Commissioner Bargy?
Sheryl, there's checks and balances built into the system. Can you go over those? We're not just relying on hand counting ballots. We're not just relying on a software or a tabulator.
Correct. We have reports that come out of the e-poll book, which documents the list of voters, the ballots that were issued, how many, you know, were spoiled, how many were duplicated, how many were absentee. That is in the summary report that goes to the county, to the local clerks, and to the Board of Canvassers. We also have the tape that rolls out of the machine. And each envelope, which I just mentioned, the locals, the county, and the canvassers, we each get it. We each get a tape. It's zeroed out, and then the day has begun, and then they close out. It gives the time, you know, they close the polls, and what time that, you know, turn off the machine. It gives you a great deal of information. And then those are all consolidated as they bring their envelopes back to me. And like, I was just working on a report. The last one came in at 3:35, November 4th. That is the day after election. But by the time they get all of their paperwork, all of their balancing, all of their reports for every envelope, and all their seals on all of their machines and all of their canisters, then we then get our envelope and the canvasser's envelope. We open the clerk's envelope, we open the sealed tabulator card, and we upload that into the election night reporting system, the global system. And that's where we went off because it didn't match. So we had to start entering, you know, by hand to at least get that first report out, which it was out at 4. We ran a report at 4:09 a.m. and we left at 5, and we were back, you know, we were back to work at 8 o'clock, before 8 o'clock. And then the canvassers canvass. They go over their reports and they certify, you know, that the tapes, you know, it adds up, the summary reports add up, and they check the seal numbers on all the seals that are reported in the book.
Okay. Commissioner Levanway, we need, go ahead.
Yes, I don't want to get into all this. The reason I brought this back up is there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions, and we just keep putting out there that it was our mistake. And that is not solving the problem of questions that people are having. And I would like to see us do something that either we ask questions to Sheryl and maybe do a press on those questions, or put a link on the website. the map that Jeremy gave me was excellent to let people see that, to let people know. Maybe we need to put information that Sheryl keeps trying to explain to people on the website so that we're more aware, so that doesn't keep going on and on and on for another 2 to 3 years. And I don't know, I think we need to think about this. We need to discuss this more, where we really need to try to inform the public so that they are more informed and these questions that they keep asking will be answered. Because everybody has them. And unless we do something, nothing was ever going to change. By saying it was our error doesn't help anything. We need to really put something more together. And that's the reason why I put it on the agenda, so that we can talk about this. And maybe what we need to do is get questions together and send them to Sheryl so she can answer them. And then we can go from there to at least educate us more about it.
Just a short question. Legal. We mentioned there's a training thing going on pretty soon where the machines will have somebody getting trained on them. Would that affect our lawsuit in any way, negatively, having somebody utilizing the Dominion systems in our office? Just a question.
Yes, we'll have to check with our attorney because of the pending litigation and the preservation of all the computer equipment and programs. But on the other hand, we too have an election coming up. So therefore, the Secretary of State's office is working with a third party, and it will be a party that will come up here and will look at our machines. Mostly the one in my office, because that's the one that Allied got into.
Any other discussion? I would charge the commissioners that have questions to get them in writing, get them to our county clerk, Sheryl Guy, charge Sheryl Guy to respond to them. The biggest thing that, and I see the thought process of pretty much the whole board. All we're really after is to make sure that our constituents can have a true and fair election with no issues. And that's, I believe, what our whole board is trying to make sure is going to be the case. So if you guys will do that and get that information to her, we can get this and get everybody happy and understanding where we're at and move forward. With that, we will continue on with new business, claims and accounts.